Hi everyone, it's Jeanne from the Twin Rivers branch, and today we're going to make a sweet and sour tofu vegetable stir fry. It's a light, very healthy dish. It doesn't have a sticky, heavy sauce. It's a super light sauce that's sweetened with some pineapple, and I think you're really going to love it. So please join me to make sweet and sour tofu stir fry. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is do our tofu. If you don't want to do tofu, you can do any protein that you like. You can leave the protein out if you want as well, if you want to do this as a side dish. So here I have my block of tofu, which I have already pressed to remove the excess water. If you don't have a tofu press, that's fine. Just use a clean tea towel or a, so it's really pressed in there. There we go. A clean tea towel, wrap it in that and press out the excess water, or you could even use a couple paper towels. And again, wrap it and press the excess water out. You don't have to press the water out, but most people prefer it that way. So what I like to do is I like to sear it in olive oil seasoned with salt and pepper. And to do that, I like to cut mine into bigger pieces just so it sears more quickly. So I'll usually slice it into sections, and then later when I put it into the dish that we're making, I will cut it before that into bite-sized pieces so I can just toss it in. But to make it go quicker and smoother, I like to do it in bigger chunks to start, or slices, I guess you could say. All right, so I'm going to put these on the plate. I will drizzle some olive oil on top. Okay, so here we have our plate of tofu. I'm going to drizzle a little bit on. And I'm going to use that to coat. You don't want a ton of oil on there, enough so it doesn't stick, of course. If you want, you can deep fry. That's what I was going to say before. You can deep fry these if you want. I don't like it as much deep fried personally, but it will make your sauce stick nicely to it. It will give it a crispy exterior. So if you like it fried, you know, deep fried, just go for it. It's just not my favorite. And now we're going to, actually let's salt and pepper them. So I have a little bit of sea salt here. I don't put too much on, a little bit. And then some cracked pepper. This is just your regular black pepper. This is just your regular black pepper. And that's good. And then let's flip them and do the same thing on the other side, and then they can go in our hot pan. Okay, you can see that we have our tofu in the pan now. It's just going to sit there till it gets golden brown on one side. Then we'll flip it to the other side and let that brown up as well. And you really do want to let it have a nice golden brown color. It'll just have a nice exterior little hardness to it. All right, so we'll come back in a few minutes once that's gone to a golden brown color. Okay, so here we have our golden brown tofu draining on a paper towel. Once it's a little bit cooler, I'm going to chop it into bite-sized chunks to add to the stir fry at the end. It won't need a lot of cooking time at that point because it's already cooked. And if you deep fried your tofu, I would also recommend that you strain it off, drain off that extra oil by putting it on some paper towel to absorb the excess. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is make our super simple sauce. So all you need for the sauce, 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, and that is white vinegar. 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce. I'm using a vegan one, but you can certainly use whatever kind you like. Alrighty. And then, let's see, I have here 1 tablespoon of tamari. 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Now maple syrup is our sweetener. You can also use brown sugar. You could use white sugar, I guess. You could use any sweetener that you like. But if you're using maple syrup, you want to make sure that you're using actual maple syrup, not a pancake syrup. You want the pure maple syrup as your sweetener. So that's 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And we want 1 tablespoon of that hot sriracha sauce. And if you don't like it hot, I would start with a smaller amount and taste test it. Same with the sweetener. If you don't like it too sweet, even though it is sweet and sour, you could start with a little bit less and add it in as you go. Now the last thing that we need is a half a teaspoon of sesame oil. And I'm going to measure that just because it's such a small amount. I don't want it to, half of it to sit in my little dish instead of ending up in my sauce. So let's just try that. Let's see if I can see and not overspill it because it's just a half a teaspoon. Okay, so there we go with that. And that is your sauce. So we'll just want to whisk that up. And that took about 3-4 minutes, maybe. Okay, so there we've got our beautiful sauce. Okay, so I'm going to give you an overview of all the ingredients that we're going to add in. We'll need 4 tablespoons of chopped garlic, which I have sitting over by the range. And then we're also going to have the 2 things you must have in this dish are pineapple, and I'm using frozen, and tomato. It could be regular tomato, or I'm using these small grape tomatoes, and I made a little slit in them so they don't explode on anyone. And those are the only 2 for flavor and for like the saucy taste that you really need. You need them. Here I have a large dish of different vegetables. I'm using baby bok choy, broccoli, some red peppers, some green peppers, and there's celery in there somewhere. The bok choy is kind of hogging the top of the bowl there. I'm also putting in some shiitake mushrooms, and I'm going to put in some white sliced onion. Here we go. There we go, white sliced onion. And at the end for finishing, we're going to put some chopped green onions. If you have any cashews are really good on this. I just don't happen to have any right now. So these are kind of the vegetable components of what we'll be putting into the dish. Okay, so here we are at our range. I'm going to turn on my heat. And we'll see how it all comes out. This is my first live cooking on camera. So hopefully it won't be a disaster. Okay, so we've got our oil heating up in our pan. Once it gets hot, we're going to go in with our 4 cloves of chopped garlic. I might have said tablespoons before, but I meant cloves. All right, let's put those in. My pan is not quite hot enough, it seems. I didn't hear the sizzle. And we just want to get that started real quick before we add the veg. So once that starts getting a little bit brown, we're going to add in our vegetables. And we're going to add everything all at once, because one thing we want to happen is we want the tomatoes to cook down, because they're going to be part of the sauce. So even though they're a softer vegetable that you might usually put in later, in this dish it actually helps to make sort of this light sauce that we're going for. Okay. So here we go with the onions. Now let's do our big veg. Actually, let's do our mushrooms next. Let's add this all in. Now this bok choy, if you don't cook with bok choy often, it's going to cook way down. So although it looks like a lot right now, if I can fit it all in the pan raw, it'll cook down fine. And I'm going to add the tomatoes. And the pineapple. Okay, and you'll learn that my one failing in life, one of my failings, is that I always chop too much veg for these dishes. But I like to have all the different colors. All right, so now I'm going to add the sauce. at this point, you're just going to keep sauteing until it's to the doneness that you prefer. So if you like your vegetables quite crunchy, you're going to go for less time. And if you like them a little bit softer, you're going to keep it on for longer. And at this point, we're not going to add the tofu yet. We'll add that at the very end once these vegetables are done to our liking. If you were going to cook this with some type of meat or say shellfish like a shrimp, I would say put your meat or your shellfish in once your garlic is done. Put that in first and get that started cooking. Then you'll add your veg. So we're just going to keep going with this until it's to my personal desired liking, since I'll be the one eating it. Alrighty, so let's see. We've got things all mixed in, and now it's just a little quick waiting game on getting everything cooked down. Okay, so these are pretty well cooked down now. If anyone wants to admit they didn't believe me that I would get this all fitting in the pan properly, you can pay me a nickel. So these are well cooked, and I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but we have a super light sauce here. It's really not a heavy, thick, sticky sauce. It's light. It'll soak up well into the rice that we're going to serve this with, but it is not a gooey, sticky, heavy, super sweet sauce. But you can smell at this point the amazing smell of the pineapple cooking, along with all of the different ingredients in the sauce that sort of give it that spicy, sweet taste. So at this point, we're ready to add our tofu, which I have chopped down into chunks that are bite size. So at this doesn't really need to cook. It just needs to absorb some of the sauce, get incorporated into the dish with the rest of the veg, and it doesn't need to stay on for long. At this point, if you had some cashews and you were adding them in, you could add them anytime now, or you can sprinkle a few on at the end if you prefer that. If you have anyone with nut allergies, obviously, you could just put a dish on the table and people can add some cashews on their own. Now with all my yapping, this is actually cooked a tiny bit more than I would usually want, but again, you'll be cooking it to your own desired doneness. So we've got our tofu in there. Hopefully it'll be soaking up some sauce for us. And I'm going to sprinkle on now some of the green onions that we put aside. So these will give a little extra bite in there. And obviously, if your family or you do not like these, don't add them. So that's our dish. And now we're going to head back over to the counter to put this on a plate and enjoy. So here we are with our final dish. We have a delicious mixture of tofu with pineapple, broccoli, red peppers, celery, scallions or green onions, over a bed of jasmine rice, and you can really smell the fruit and the spice all mixed together. And I'm just going to serve that with a little side dish of kimchi and a nice glass of mint tea. So I hope you enjoyed today's cooking session. I really enjoyed sharing this recipe with you. And I hope it will inspire you to make more healthy, vegetable-laden dishes with different interesting sauces that you can share with your family. We miss everyone so much at the library, and we cannot wait till we're all back there together. Until we see you again, stay safe. Bye-bye.